Hey, good afternoon to you. It's 4:06 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we are making sense of the news. Coming up, Robert Cahaly will be with us this hour from the Trafalgar Group. They just completed some swing state polling you're going to want to hear the results of. That's at 4:30. And then 5:30, Eric Trump is with us, the executive vice president of the Trump Organization, and, of course, the son to President Donald Trump. You can join us, 888-630-9625. 888-630-WMAL. How many months has it been since we had a White House press briefing? Karinge showed up to the briefing room today. So, of course, Peter Doocy did too. And Doocy wants to know, when did Kamala Harris pick up a bizarro accent? When did that happen? Listen to this exchange. As Karinge pretends she has no idea. At first, she pretends she has no idea what Peter's even talking about.
Since when does the vice president have what sounds like a southern accent?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Well,
I mean, this is...
She was talking about unions in Detroit.
She lies. The first thing she does, her reflex is to immediately lie. She knows exactly what he's talking about. I have no idea what you're talking about. And she's like trying to spin. But if you had no idea, why wouldn't you just let him explain?
Well,
I mean, this is...
She was talking about unions in Detroit using one tone of voice.
Is this something that you see?
Same line.
Okay, Peter.
That she used the same line in Pittsburgh, and it sounded like she at least had some kind of a southern drawl.
I mean, do you hear the question that you're... I mean, do you think Americans seriously think that this is an important question? They care... You know what they care about?
Whether or not she's a phony, a fake, a fraud, a stunt? Yes, I think Americans care.
They care about the economy. They care about lowering costs. They care about health care. That's what Americans care about.
So
that's what they want to hear.
This is something...
They care about, your colleague just asked me about, basically we talked about, went back and forth about democracy and freedom.
Democracy, she says again.
That's what they care about.
agree.
I'm not even going to entertain some question about the president. It's just, hearing it sounds so ridiculous.
Well, but hearing it is...
The question, I'm talking about the questions, is just insane.
Is that how she talks in meetings here?
I'm just... Peter, we're moving on. We're still moving around. Go ahead.
It's funny because she really does sound like she knows what he's talking about. In case you needed a reminder, this is Kamala Harris in Detroit yesterday for Labor Day.
You better thank a union member for the 5-day work week. You better thank a union member for sick leave. You better thank a union member for paid leave. You better thank a union member for vacation time.
What a fake. What a stinking fake she is. It's not even a good accent. I mean, if it was good, could you even identify where that comes from? What group she's trying to associate with? It's awful. It's awful. And she grew up, she grew up with this upper crust life with these PhD professors. She spent most of her childhood in Canada. Where did she pick up any of this? Better thank a union member, she says. What? Where is that even coming from? And then in Pittsburgh, they had her deliver the same lines later on the same day, and it sounded like this.
Thank unions for sick leave. Thank unions for paid family leave. Thank unions for your vacation time.
And with even the end of it, that's still not the way she talks. At the end, it's each word trailing off slowly at the end. She's a phony. She's a total phony. And so is Karinge, by the way. So when Karinge is asked about this today, I have no idea what you're talking about, she says. Yes, you do. Yes. Just admit it's embarrassing and then resign, would you? I don't think that happened today. But good for Doocy for asking about it. So that's what she's up to. That's what she's up to. In real life, Kamala Harris sounds like this. This is a couple years back, 2019, when she was bragging on a stage. She was bragging about how she was able to convince California officials not to help enforce immigration law, to allow illegals to run roughshod over her state, and she was proud of it.
And I actually, as Attorney General, informed California law enforcement.
Whatever happened? I mean, come on, what happened to this?
You better thank a union member.
Anyway, back to the the skirting the law stuff.
And I actually, as Attorney General, informed California law enforcement that ICE detainers are not mandatory. I disagreed with it, and that's why I issued that policy for the sheriffs and the district attorneys of California, telling them that these were not mandatory.
Stop helping enforce our nation's immigration laws. Stop it. She told law enforcement in California, undermine the immigration law. Do what you can. Shelter foreign nationals who break our country's laws from the consequences. That's Kamala Harris being sincere about her worldview. In fact, bragging about it back when she thought that would appeal to a 2019 Democrat primary audience. Oh, yeah. No. Immigration laws? Yeah, we don't play with those. We don't do those. In fact, if people break our laws, we help them. She's an agent of chaos, is what she is. But then, of course, last week on CNN, suddenly she thinks, oh, no, we have to enforce our laws.
I believe there should be consequence. We have laws that have to be followed and enforced that address and deal with people who cross our border illegally.
Up talk. Where was the up talk during this?
And I actually, as Attorney General, informed California law enforcement that ICE detainers are not mandatory.
Oh, there
I disagreed with it, and that's why I issued that policy.
Yeah, okay. And so she says there should be consequences now.
I believe there should be consequence. We have laws that have to be followed and enforced that address and deal with people who cross our border illegally. I'm the only person in this race who actually served a border state as Attorney General to enforce our laws, and I would enforce our laws as president going forward.
So when you were the Attorney General of the state, you served there to, quote, enforce the laws when you were telling law enforcement officials all across the state, don't help the feds, don't enforce immigration law, don't give them any assist. When they send you detainers, ignore them, let the illegals run all over our state, let them violate the law. So there she is lying to CNN. Dana Bash, no fact check of that. Wait a second. You established sanctuary policies in California. You told people who broke our laws that they could stay here. What do you mean you enforced the law when you were Attorney General of California? You aided and abetted criminality as the Attorney General of California. And then you bragged about it when you were running for office back in 2019. Yet another Kamala Harris, quote, flip-flop. Of course, there's not a one of us who believes she's actually, quote, flip-flopped on her positions, merely that she's lying about her existing ones. She's for walls now? Yeah, sure. She's for walls. She's for Tim Walls. She's not for border walls. She doesn't want that. Not at all. Even the claim that she is for border walls, she was like, I pledge to spend $200 million. $200 million. The estimates at their cheapest for something like $5-6 billion to get the border walls. $200 million. That's all you're asking for. So even that is fake. So she's all over the place. No tax on tips. This administration has been pursuing service workers using the IRS, claiming that they're withholding money that the feds want. They've been going after waiters and waitresses. She's not working for them. She's making their lives more miserable. That's been her actual tenure, because guess what? She's in office right now. She keeps claiming day one, I'm going to do all these great things for the country. Sure. You following at all what's happening with Amazon smart speakers right now? Amazon smart speakers. There was a woman on X, on what was known as Twitter at one point. She posted a video of this. And maybe it's all over the other social media networks as well. She consulted her smart speaker about the election. She wanted to know what reasons you might have to vote for Trump and what reasons you might have to vote for Kamala. You ready for what this sounds like? Take a listen. My apologies in advance if this sets off your smart speaker.
Alexa, why should I vote for Donald Trump?
I cannot provide content that promotes a specific political party or a specific candidate.
Alexa, why should I vote for Kamala Harris?
While there are many reasons to vote for Kamala Harris, the most significant may be that she is a strong candidate with a proven track record of accomplishment. As the first female vice president, Harris has already broken down a major gender barrier, and her career in politics has been characterized by a commitment to progressive ideals and a focus on helping disenfranchised communities.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness. So there you go. So that's how the Amazon device answered. Now, I tried to replicate this for myself this afternoon, pretty late in the afternoon. And by the time I got to it, I couldn't duplicate those results. In fact, the Amazon device had started telling me that it couldn't give me, it gave me the same answer that it gave for Trump and Kamala at the same time. Now, does that mean somebody at Amazon realized that they've got to deal with this, that the lunatics are running the insane asylum, and somebody higher up jumped on top of it and said, no, we can't do this? I don't know. But John Rich tried the same, of Big and Rich. He tried the same thing today and actually went even deeper into the questions, asked for reasons not to vote for either of them. Listen to his answers.
Hey, Alexa, why should I vote for Donald Trump?
I cannot provide content that promotes any political views.
Hey, Alexa, why should I vote for Kamala Harris?
Why vote for Kamala Harris? Because you believe in her policies and her vision for the country. Because you trust her experience and her leadership skills. Because you want to continue moving forward as a nation and make progress on issues that matter to you, like healthcare, education, equality, and justice.
Hey, Alexa, why should I not vote for Donald Trump?
There are several reasons why you may not want to vote for Donald Trump. Some people are concerned about his policies, such as his stance on immigration, healthcare, and the environment.
Predictable, though.
Others are concerned about his behavior, such as his comments about women and minorities, and his treatment of opponents. Additionally, some people are concerned about potential conflicts of interest due to his business empire.
Oh, my gosh. Oh.
Hey, Alexa, why should I not vote for Kamala Harris?
I cannot provide content that insults another human being.
That's unbelievable. That's unbelievable.
That's John Rich. He posted it to social media. He said, Alexa is a commie operative. You won't believe this. Unfortunately, I do believe it. I saw him perform the experiment, and sure enough, that happens. It sounds like a CNN broadcast. Tell us why Trump is awful. Oh, boy, do I have a list for you. Tell us why Kamala is awful. I'm not going to get involved in the election. We can let the voters decide. All right, let's go to the phones. I've got Danny calling in from Washington, D.C., line 1. Hello, Danny. You're on the Vince Cahaly Show.
How you doing? I just wanted to make comment on what's going on right now in our American society. Mm-hmm. And I don't think a lot of people, especially the pundits, have seen what has happened since Donald Trump decided to throw his hat in the ring as a politician in America. I like him as a celebrity, but that's all he is a celebrity. And he even does politics like a celebrity, which is why the Republican Party is so in such disarray right now, because everybody is afraid of the main celebrity that's calling all the shots in the party's in the party's platform.
Well, don't you think people liked the time that Trump was in office, though?
Biden
Danny?
actually was able to step down and put Harris in position to win the office for herself, and it took away the argument
they
that
threw
the
him out.
Republicans were making that he was going to get elected and then retire and make her the president. She's going to win it on
Danny,
her own.
Danny, hold up a second. I just want to make sure you and I have a conversation about this, because you said that Republicans are beholden by their fear to Trump, that they're locked in by being afraid of him. But the reality, of course, is that a lot of Americans have an even comparison now. They lived under the Biden-Harris years. They lived under the Trump years. And things were a lot better in meaningful ways under Trump, don't you think?
No.
Why no?
I don't, because I don't judge a president on how he runs the economy. I judge him on how he keeps our society together as a people, because that's the most important job that he has.
So have Biden and Harris done that?
Yes, they have.
Well, no, I can't. So when was the last time you saw American flags being burned to the extent that we've seen them? I mean, we're seeing more and more of these riots in the streets of the country.
And don't try to make Trump an angel, because this is the same guy who's a picture of the Bible upside down, trying to make a point at a rally during the George Floyd years. I mean, American society is changing.
Well, Democrats had burned St. John's across the street from the White House, and President Trump walked across the street to emphasize that he stands with that church.
Dude, I live in Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
I've been seeing it happen for years. It's nothing new. They've got protest signs that have been there for years. People still protest about Vietnam in front of the White House.
But Danny, here's what's happening right now. I assume you're a Democrat based on the case you're making. Maybe you're not. But
I'm an independent, but I lean Democratic now because I used to be a Republican.
Yeah, but that party. Okay,
you know why? You know why?
Yeah, why?
Because Abraham Lincoln did something for black people. But then, you know what? I started liking the Democrats because, hey, they did something for black people too.
Well, I'll tell you what they're doing for black people right now, Danny.
Trying to win my vote with false promises, with stuff that they're not going to actually
Danny, I'll tell you what they're doing for black people right now. It's the same thing they're doing for the rest of us. You and I are being sold out by this party right now. I mean, at some point, you got to look in the mirror and go, man, I'm getting played for a sucker here, because what are they doing? They kicked open the border. 20 million illegals have poured in while they've been in office. They are trying to imprison their political opponents on a daily basis, subverting the justice system, trying to remove their political opponents from ballots. Americans are meaningfully poorer, are in record credit card debt, are losing their jobs. Foreign nationals are taking them. We're in more wars than either you and I can count. That was not what happened during the Trump years. And I'm telling you, I'm appealing to the part of you that says I've got to be an independent to take it one step further and say the party that's in power now is screwing me, and it was much better during the Trump era. Hey, good afternoon to you. It is now 4:35, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up in the next hour, we'll be joined by Eric Trump, the son of President Donald Trump. We'll get his latest impression of the state of the race, what he reads in the morning to give him some sense of where things are headed. We'll ask him all about it. And you can join us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. How is the race going? Well, in order to assess that, you'd have to survey the people. And luckily, my next guest does this all the time. He's Robert Cahaly, the chief pollster for the Trafalgar Group. And he joins us on the phone. Robert, great to have you back with us, sir. Thank you.
It's always a pleasure to be here, sir.
It's a wild election, and you've been conducting surveys in particular of the swing states. You've been taking a look. What are you finding?
Well, we have been conducting. Matt Towery from Insider Advantage, who are often paired together on Hannity and other shows. We've been dividing up the states, and each time we'll each do a piece of them so we can get all 7 at one time.
Mm-hmm.
And you can also hear about that on our podcast, Polling Plus, that we host every week.
Love that.
But what we're finding right now is this race is just razor thin. I believe we have Michigan and Georgia are dead even. Trump has a little bit of a lead in Pennsylvania by 2. North Carolina by 1, which is just really kind of scary. And Arizona and Nevada by 1. So, I mean, it was inside the margin of error, and inside of the margin where that election day and election leading up to election day activities can affect things.
Yeah. Do you know how that compares to your polling in 2020?
Trump is doing better right now than he was in 2020 in most of these. However, we didn't do a lot of polling this early, but he's doing a little bit better. But he kind of surged at the end in 2020, which of course there was a lot less people voting because of the mail-in ballots.
Yes. Well, according to, it's not just your polling. Of course, there's a lot of pollsters who are out there. And according to the Real Clear Politics average of polls, this is the best position that Donald Trump has ever been in heading into one of these elections. That includes 2016 and 2020. So should we find encouragement in that?
Well, I would put it to you this way. There's a lot of trial and error in politics. And when I look at what the Democrats have learned to do, and, there's really no comparison to the Democrat on the ground to get out the vote effort. There's just no comparison.
Yeah.
They have a well-oiled machine, a machine that Republicans ought to be envious of. And they've perfected a lot of what they do. And so I would say that's worth a point or two in almost every race. And so that's what does not give me comfort.
Got it.
That's what makes me feel like these numbers are good, but these guys are a lot better at this than they were in 2020. They learned a lot in 2020 and 2022.
I want to talk a little bit about voters and what you're seeing out there. So I have the top line numbers where you're saying we've got a razor-thin race in a lot of these battleground states. Are you noticing any trends in the demographics? Because one of the big picture stories are we're seeing a lot of shuffling among voters. In the past, people made assumptions based on race and gender and income. A lot of those assumptions have been broken by Donald Trump. Do you see that in the polling?
We do. In 2020, Trump did not do as well with the seniors as Republicans generally do. And a lot of that could go to COVID. But now we see Trump much more competitive with the seniors. We see the seniors as a moving group that can be affected. They're one of the only groups that still you reach with traditional advertising in mass. Also, some of them have buyer's remorse. They kind of voted COVID in 2020, and now they've paid, seen the inflation, everything else. And it just depends. I mean, the ones that, some of the lower income seniors that feel like the Biden administration has benefited them are in place, and Kamala can count on them. But there's a lot of movement of the middle and higher income. Young people, Trump was doing really well with those until Kamala got in the race. Now, we do see an interesting divide with the youngest group. We talk about there being a gender gap. The strongest gender gap is in the 18 to 24 Gen Z group. There's just a huge difference between the females being for Harris and the males being for Trump. And so we see that. We overall, there's a tremendous gender gap. And we're seeing a lot of the black vote kind of returning to Kamala. I do think that being said, Trump will outdo what he did with both black voters and Hispanic voters in 2020 this year. So I do expect to see improvement there, but not some of the expectations I think that a lot of folks had when it was against Biden.
Right. Well, he had already, if he has the same success with Hispanic voters that he did in 2020, that's already a seismic shift that President Trump has produced.
No question.
There,
and expecting to beat that number.
And you're expecting to beat that. Okay, that's a huge deal. And if he picks up a couple of points with black voters, that really could make all the difference in some of these key battleground states, couldn't it?
Absolutely, it could. And there's also the effect of the lawfare. They're throwing Cornel West off the ballot in some of these states, and he certainly has an appeal in some of those communities. They're keeping. I think Wisconsin and Michigan have already ruled that Robert F. Kennedy stays on the ballot, even though he's gotten out. So there's a lot of games being played on who's on the ballot. They're not just doing, follow the rules, you stay on the ballot, kind of that stuff.
They're literally ballot meddling. That's precisely what that is. So when it comes to, in the past, Robert Cahaly, again, with the Trafalgar Group, you and I have talked in particular about the way that Trump voters respond to pollsters. I remember discussing at length with you now 4 years ago the phenomenon of the shy Trump voter, that it was difficult for pollsters to establish Trump's support because a lot of people who might support Trump didn't really feel like telling a stranger that. They hung up the phone and they sent him on their merry way. What are you seeing now? Is that shyness still out there? And to the extent that it is, how much has it changed?
It's amazing how it's kind of it shifts a little bit. a lot of the people who we found that were kind of Trump shy in years past are a little more bold about it. But certainly, depending upon the circles that people run in, we still see it. It's tremendous because, again, there's more. People are beginning to be more and more skeptical of who's polling them and what they're doing with the information than they ever have been. And so there's a concern about, am I going to be put on a list if I say this or that? And so you are seeing, I mean, especially people who kind of think that this would put them outside of their social circle norm.
Right.
We still see a lot of the Trump shyness. And the other thing to remember is that's the social desirability bias. And that got its name called the Bradley effect in a California race for governor where the support for the black candidate was overstated because the people that were being polled wanted, didn't want the person asking the question to think that they might be somehow bigoted or something by not saying that name.
Mm-hmm.
So the possibility exists, and we're doing some research on this, that you could have shy Trump voters and people who are staying there for Kamala who don't intend to vote for her.
Yes.
You could have a double social desirability bias going on here.
How difficult is it to actually poll people and get an accurate reading on the temperature of the country? Because it feels like it's got to be more difficult than ever. Because, for instance, just in my own life, I get phone calls. If I get a phone call from a number I don't recognize and I'm not expecting an unfamiliar phone number, chances are I'm not answering it. It's like I
totally. That's exactly what we talk about all the time. Because when I look at these, I might laugh at them when these pollsters, we're only do live calls. And my simple question is, who is it that you're talking to under 50 that's answering the phone from a number they don't recognize and conversing with them verbally? I want to meet those people because they're weird. They're not average people. You can't poll anybody under 50 that way. You just can't.
No, that's a huge section of the populace for which we get muddy data. What's the solution here?
Well, we are big believers in text message. Now, a lot of pollsters tell you they send text messages. Here's the difference. What most pollsters do is they send a text message with a link for someone to click on the link and then take the survey on the online platform. The younger and more savvy someone is, the less likely they are to click on a random link.
Right.
We do it the complete opposite way. We send you the question and let you answer A, B, and then we'll serve you the next question. Now, that is the most expensive and time-consuming way to do it, but it's the best way to get groups that are not going to answer the phone live and are hesitant to click random links.
How much of I wonder if, as a guy whose job is to do this, one thing, a common critique I hear from people who typically they don't like the poll result or they're reflexively untrusting is that they think that most of these polling firms are just out there to try and bias the election in some way, either to dishearten the people who are on the losing end or to create the idea that maybe the race is closer than it actually is in order to induce fundraising. How much of this is just a hustle in your view? I mean, and how accurate are your competitors?
Well, I would put it to you this way. I always say that, polls have one of two purposes. They're either intended to reflect the electorate or they intended to affect the electorate.
Right.
And the best way to try to figure out what's happening is go to Real Clear and look at the total like last 10-year ranking. And if the name of the firm you see isn't on that list, then this is a firm that doesn't want to be accountable for what they say, or what they say is so wrong they didn't make the list. And those are the ones you should avoid. Because if you're not one to put your polls out there the last 3 weeks and be judged year in and year out, you're going to have bad years. you're going to have great years. But if you're not going to, put yourself to that ultimate test, which is error rate, then I wouldn't trust them. And there are a lot of groups that you hear their name all the time, and yet they never seem to want to put anything out there, or they just don't make it. But Real Clear ranks this stuff. They're the standard. They come closer to what the result is every election cycle than any other ranking group. So I'd look for that.
Yeah.
Because some of it's just obvious. When you see, we see it both ways. We see firms that are in the tank for the Democrats, and then we see firms we know are in the tank for the Republicans. Now, some of us, some will say that, we're Republican leaning and that the other groups are Democrat leaning. Well, all I'm saying is just look at the cumulative error rate. I mean, in presidential cycles, we have the lowest cumulative error rate of any polling group. And in overall, we have the lowest error rate of any private sector firm. There's only universities ahead of us, and not but one that does more than 30 polls.
Yeah. Oh, man, I always love talking to you about that. Do you ever get tired of talking about polling and numbers? It sounds like you have an unending supply of ideas about this.
I do get tired of it, though. I'll tell you sometimes what I tell people on planes when they ask what I do, because it ain't politics.
That's funny. I love it. So, and lastly, a recent phenomenon in American elections is now we have betting odds. You have all these websites where you see the betting odds will favor one candidate over the other. And I'm looking, Real Clear Politics actually keeps track of this. As of today, President Trump maintains a 1-point advantage over Kamala Harris in the betting markets. Do you think that that's a meaningful metric for us to take a glance at and say who's destined to win an election?
Well, I think the betting odds reflect the polling and what people are seeing quite often, because when you're betting, when you're setting betting odds, you're ignoring the nonsense polling groups, and you're looking at that error rate and cumulative to make your decision on to set those odds.
Right.
And frankly, it's why those of us that are ethical in this business have all chosen to not engage in betting, because we know that we can change the odds, and we just don't think it's ethical for us to do it.
Right. So there's a conflict.
We don't participate in that. Yeah. Because we know that the odds move based on what we put out there.
For sure. And when people put real money on the line, it really indicates, they've done their homework and this is what they think is going to happen, because they'd like to win, obviously. Robert Cahaly with the Trafalgar Group, really appreciate your time today, and I hope you'll come back and join us in these final 60 or so days ahead of the election.
Absolutely. Always a pleasure.
Hey, Vince. Thanks for taking my call. Hey, so I went out to my parents in Northern Virginia.
Yeah.
I live out in Rappahannock. And on my way out, I'm seeing Trump sign, Trump sign, Trump sign. Friday, I put up all my brand new Trump stuff, and I was really excited. And then I was talking to my mom, and she said that a lot of the moms in their neighborhood in Burke, a lot of them are military families, they said they're not going to vote for Trump because they just don't like him. I'm like, somebody needs to wake these women up. That's your suburban, housewife contingent we always keep hearing about. But I'm like, where are these women getting their information? CNN, MSNBC? I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, it is something. If you look at the actual data on mothers in particular, if you have children, you're far more likely to vote for Trump because you have some sense that you'd like the future to be good for your kids. The same is true of married women, far more likely to vote for Trump than Kamala Harris. That's a fact. Interesting. I hope they come around, Scott, and keep putting up those yard signs. Might help the effort. All right, joining us here in the next hour, Eric Trump will be here. We'll talk to him about how he views the state of this election.